Hello Fearless Gamers, Matt here for Fearless Games, and today I'm doing another Vets How-To / Behind the Scenes. This video was requested quite some time ago. I do apologize for that, due to work and a trip that I went on and just some crazy stuff with personal and all that other jazz. Things got a little chaotic, but hopefully things have gotten a little bit more back on track and I'll be able to produce more of these videos rather than just the podcast and the Joy of Painting minis. And so on and so forth. So, as requested, we're going to be doing a how to do a BattleFleet Gothic campaign / the behind the scenes of how we set up the Rise of the Magi video. Now, with these rules, we're going to be talking purely on BattleFleet Gothic. But these rules, this video here, is going to have a lot of setup and ideas for how to do any type of campaign, for Warhammer, Fantasy, Privateer, War Machine, Hordes, Dystopian Wars, Infinity. General idea is going to be really good from this to give you like a starting base on how to think up of stories and campaigns and such. In terms of actual campaign mechanics, when we move on, those will still work. Those videos will still work with other GW games. War Machine and all that, I don't know if they have any rules for campaigns. If they do, it would be best to look into those. If not, then feel free to use these and just tweak them a little bit to account for fluff and story and all that jazz in those other games. So, moving on here. First thing you need in a campaign setting of any kind is a story. Why is it happening? Where's it going? What's to gain? What's to lose? With a tournament and a league, you have your established what's to gain, what's to lose. Gain, got a full army, or if it's a tournament, maybe a cool prize. Lose, a couple of hours in your day for a game that you didn't end up winning. That's really all there is to it. Campaigns, they use their stories to drive it forward. Are you going to win? What's going to happen? What will your faction survive? Will your faction be defeated? Will it be a glorious victory or a marginal victory? It's all based around the story, and that's driving by it. It's very much like a D&D game, using your armies as the players and your characters instead of your physical self doing a character sheet and role-playing it out. It's all done through battle and resolutions from those battles. So we're going to give an example right here, like in Rise of the Magi and all that. The campaign was the Tau and the Imperials joined forces. The Tau they joined forces after consulting with the Eldar that brought the two factions together and said, you know, there's a horrible Magi dynasty. We got to join forces if we're going to stop them because they're going to ruin everything if we don't stop them now. Tau decided to join in because they're running very weak and they could use the extra support in defeating this enemy, especially since they're planning on doing an evacuation, and if they're going to just be chased down by what's rising here, they might as well make one last stand. On the Adeptus Mechanicus side, Stryker is desperate to get the artifacts that are there on this in this sector, and if he can gain control without having to deal with so many different, with only three factions instead of 3, 4, 5 factions, then he sees a perfect opportunity. He could take over as many sectors as he can, push out the chaotic forces, and then just finish off the Tau. They're so getting a bunch of new artifacts and hopefully regaining his rank of what was it? Archmagos Veneratus. On the Eldar, and their craft world is running through the, is going to be hitting the subsector soon. And if it does, when the Necrons are around, they could kiss their craft world goodbye. So they decide to get the two forces together to band forth to, fight against them, basically be a human shield. Or living shield, since not all of them are human, whatever. And on the Chaos side here, Necrons, the Lord Amen just arose. His entire dynasty has not been completely awakened, and actually there's more about the whole him and the dynasty thing that we hopefully should be later on exploring. And he decides that the forces that he has are not sufficient enough to deal with the Imperial and Tau combined. So he contacts the Sons of Horus and the Alexander's warband to try and make a temporary alliance, which they gain the most from because they gain the entire sector, and the other two factions gain a little bit, but not enough to make them considerably a threat to the Magi dynasty at this end. So then they decide to all forge this alliance to take on the Imperial side. And with that, big thing here is one person made a comment about how Necrons would never join forces with the Orcs and the Chaos. Well, originally it wasn't going to be that way. Originally it was going to be that the Magi dynasty awoke, they started ripping through the Imperials and the Taus, and the Chaos and Orcs were just going to ride the wave of destruction and take whatever they can in their wake. But when the new Codex came out, the 5th Ed Codex, and the new fluff behind them about them being, these intelligent creatures and, having a whole society and hierarchy and the possibility of negotiations and alliances then became something that was plausible. So we decided to go, well, if it's a plausible idea, it makes more sense, gets more dialogue in and such, let's do it. There's no harm in it. It doesn't go against the fluff in any way. And it's our campaign, so we figure, it's within fluff. I actually had one of my fluff lore guys who's crazy about this stuff, who's like ridiculous with how much he knows, go over and he said, yeah, no, what you propose with the Necrons, the Orcs, and all, that is within the realm of possibility. That could happen. You could write a story about that and GW wouldn't say no to it. So we decided to go with it. So now that you have your story, you need a map, because location is one of the key elements, aside from story, to your campaign. For BattleFleet Gothic, it's a sector map. You could go to Google and just Google BattleFleet Gothic sector map, and you'd probably get a whole slew of possible maps, or you can make your own. Now, if you're making your own, big thing to keep in mind is, A, you don't want to make it where there's like one treasure trove of resources that's often a niche, and if one person conquers it, then they've got the whole campaign in the palm of their hand. You want to make it where the juicy stuff is fairly accessible, or you have to go through some dangerous terrain in order to get to it, because you want to have reasons for your players to take risks. If they don't take risks, you're going to have a very boring campaign, sorry, where nothing happens. And with that also, you don't want too many safe havens, and you don't want a situation where everyone just gangs up on one person, because then that's kind of unfair and makes one person feel ganged up on, and it causes issues later down the line with friendships and all that jazz, and you don't want to have to deal with that. That's kind of a... sorry. So, with that, you get your map set up. You have a nice area. You want to also keep it easy to access from a good chunk of areas. That way you allow players to have strategy and different ways of approaching the campaign, instead of just, well, it's a clear straight line, so boom, we meet at the middle. You want to give your players the ability to creatively take on what they're dealing with. So now, with that, now you're going to need to divide your factions into teams, or factions, whichever term you wish to use. BattleFleet Gothic, there's two teams, Imperial, Chaos. On the Imperial side, we got the Imperial Guard / Adeptus Mechanicus, the Space Marines, the Eldar, the Craftworld Eldar, the Corsair Eldar, we do put them in two different categories for a reason, and the Tau with their ally, the Demurrg, which is all one faction. Then on Chaos, we got Chaos, Orcs, Necrons, Dark Eldar, and Nids. Now, some of you may be going, well, Nids are technically neutral, Dark Eldar can do this, Necrons are neutral. The problem with that is you have these clearly defined, good-aligned races. They will ally with each other. Then you've got this group of bad guys that won't ally with each other, or super neutral. You end up with one huge team fighting 5 mini teams, which can then cause, oh, it's technically 5-on-5. Oh, well, these two factions, that team's winning, so technically we're neutral, so we're joining this side, bang, bam. Now they just gained 2 extra players on the Imperial team. And it causes for a little bit of issue. So to make things simpler, we found that it was easier to just have 5 armies on 2 sides. Makes things simple, easy to manage without any issues going on about power shifts and all this other jazz. Except for the occasional what happens in the story. Those are the only type of power shifts that will happen. Now, with that, when you're done with that, you then have to pick your teams. So, you get players, and you find out which factions they're on, you set up your teams, and that's when you then can play with the neutral factions. Oh, Chaos is light, well, here to take the Eldar. Okay, now it's a little bit more balanced. That's when you can start playing and managing, switching some of the neutral factions to different sides because of player and army, combinations. That's really when you want to start worrying about, oh, if this team is neutral and all that other jazz. But then you want to, again, keep it good guys, bad guys, no switching in between. Unless you have a part of a campaign that gives 2 teams the ability or something. That's entirely up to you. That's more of a mechanic system that you want to work with that. What we like to do here at Fearless Games is just make it clear-cut, the 5 good guys, the 5 bad guys. And then once you have your okay, you got your story, you got your map, you got your teams, and you got them broken down into, you got your players, and you got them broken down in teams with their armies and respectively. Now what's next is in BattleFleet Gothic, they build their armies. So you give them a fleet list, they have a commander, which they can give a name. He's got a leadership of, I believe they all start with leadership 8, and then they... No, correction. They don't start with any leadership. You have your leader with 1 point of renown, and I believe they get 1 reroll. They then are assigned to a ship in your fleet, which you decide on a points value. Typical campaigns, 1,000 to 2,000 points. So, you have them each build a fleet list with between, from either 1,000 or 2,000, depending on how big your campaign is. They get their commanders. They pick a flagship for their commanders. With that, they do have their rerolls that they use. There's 2 types of different things with the rerolls. The commander's rerolls can be used on any ship, any squadron in the force. A reroll that you purchase, like say if you bought a fleet officer, his reroll can only work on his vessel, unless you get Abaddon or some silly guy there. Abaddon is like one of the only exceptions in the game. He's the only one where his reroll can be used on anyone, with consequence if they fail. But that's the general case of your commander. So you basically get 1 reroll from your commander that's fleet-wide, and if any extra rerolls that you purchase are just applicable to the ship that you bought it for. You got your fleets, got your players, now they have to pick their starting locations. BattleFleet Gothic, Imperials always go first. So you have all your Imperials, with the exception of the Corsair Eldar, select a planet. Then you have your Chaos, with the exception of Orcs and Dark Eldar, select a planet. With the Eldar, the Dark Eldar, and the Orcs, they don't pick systems like the other forces because they can't actually control territories. Now, with the Craftworld Eldar, why do they get to do it? It actually says in their rule, I believe, I could be mistaken, but as last I checked how I interpreted their rules, they are allowed to conquer systems because they don't have any rule about pirate bases in their thing. So I usually let the Craftworld Eldar pick pirate bases, conquer systems. Whereas the Craftworld Eldar can't, because they're a very small faction. Conquering systems and all that we'll get to in a later video. But for now, what you do is those 3 forces pick their pirate bases. They're a secret location on the map. It could even be, it could either be an unclaimed system, or a system that another player controls. Good or bad. When this location is given, they write it down on a piece of paper and they submit this to the campaign organizer. If the campaign organizer is playing in the game, you just have to give him the benefit of the doubt that he's going to not reveal this information and not take advantage of knowing this information. And actually, with them, there's actually some rules in the campaign that kind of prevents him from taking advantage of that. So right there, you got everything that you got set up. You got your story, you got your map, You got your factions broken down into teams, you got players to play, they have their fleets, they have their starting locations. Next is going to be talking about how to when you're actually running the game, which we're going to get into in another video. That way, if you just wanted to look at how to start up a campaign, boom, this whole video's here for you. If you want to continue on, we'll continue on with the other videos. That'll be posted later. So, for right now, thank you all very much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to post these videos, and at the end, once the last video is posted, I'm going to give a week for that. Post any questions you have on any corresponding video, and then I'll do a whole Q&A video at the end of this whole series. So feel free to leave a question. If you haven't yet, please like us and subscribe. Subscribe, that way you get these videos ahead of time before anyone else does. Like us so the videos can get more circulation. Check us out on Facebook and at fearlessgames.com for some cool blogs and news information when we get to the when we find them out. Capture contests and a whole bunch of cool goodies. Plus any news that's coming up with Fearless Games ourselves. So again, thank you all for watching. Next week we'll be talking about the actual campaign itself, running the game itself from start to finish. So that is all for right now. Thank you all again for watching, and until next time, Fearless Gamers, take care.